Scooby-Doo had been a mainstay of American animation since his debut in 1969, with decades of mystery-solving, slapstick humor, and monster unmasking under his collar. But by the time Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island arrived on VHS shelves in September of 1998, the franchise had started to drift into a kind of limbo, well-loved, certainly, but mostly as nostalgic reruns for older fans or Saturday morning filler for kids. The character and the format were beginning to feel a little too familiar. What hadn't changed in nearly 30 years was the formula. A gang of meddling kids in a van uncovering that every ghoul and ghost was just some disgruntled guy in a mask. While comforting, the repetition had dulled the franchise's edge. That all changed with Zombie Island, a direct-to-video animated film that didn't just breathe new life into the series, but completely reinvented it. Released without a theatrical run, it defied the expectations that usually came with the DTV label, and instead turned out to be one of the most important and influential entries in the Scooby-Doo canon. It didn't simply crank the engine of the Mystery Machine. It put the pedal to the metal, careened off the beaten path, and delivered something fans had never seen before. The journey that led the gang to Zombie Island wasn't particularly flashy at first. It began in the quiet early days of the 1990s, when reruns of classic Scooby-Doo episodes began airing on the newly launched Cartoon Network. Backed by Turner Broadcasting, the channel was in need of programming, and the old Hanna-Barbera catalog was a gold mine. The show's reruns quickly became a surprise ratings hit. The same generation who had watched Scooby-Doo after school in the 70s was now introducing it to their children, and a new audience emerged. The demand for more Scooby content grew steadily, despite the fact that the franchise had mostly faded from Saturday morning television schedules. Behind the scenes, big changes were afoot. Turner had acquired Hanna-Barbera primarily for its vast library of animated properties. When Turner merged with Time Warner in 1996, that entire library, Scooby included, came under the larger umbrella of Warner Bros. Animation. Executives were keen to capitalize on familiar intellectual properties that still tested well with audiences. Scooby-Doo, still enjoying high Q scores and steady fan recognition, was the perfect target for revitalization. The idea for a new feature-length project emerged within this context. Warner's home video division had found surprising success with animated direct-to-video titles based on their DC Comics characters, particularly Batman. There was real potential in the DTV market, and Scooby-Doo seemed like the ideal candidate to test the waters with something new. Davis Doy, a seasoned producer at Hanna-Barbera, was tapped to lead the project, and he brought in trusted collaborators. Director Jim Stenstrom and writer Glenn Leopold. All three had cut their teeth on more action-oriented animation, including SWAT Kats, The Radical Squadron, and The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. They were veterans, and more importantly, they were hungry to try something bold. And bold they were. From the very beginning, the team knew they didn't want to do another cookie-cutter Scooby caper. While the traditional mystery formula had worked well for half-hour episodes, it didn't always hold up over the course of a full-length film. For Zombie Island, they proposed something almost heretical by Scooby standards. What if the monsters were actually real? This wasn't going to be another case of a guy in a costume trying to scare people off his property. This time, the supernatural would be genuinely supernatural. There would be real danger, real scares, real stakes. The villains weren't disgruntled caretakers. They were centuries-old wercats, cursed by an ancient ritual, hiding on a haunted bayou island filled with undead pirates and ghostly warnings. The film wouldn't just toy with spooky imagery, it would fully embrace gothic horror. It would be dark, atmospheric, mysterious in the truest sense of the word. It was a radical shift in tone, but the team was all in. They had the freedom of a relatively low-risk direct-to-video release, and with minimal interference from studio executives, they crafted the film they wanted to see. The bayou setting gave the story a lush, eerie backdrop that felt unlike anything else in the franchise. The characters, now older and a bit more jaded, were reintroduced as having drifted apart, only to reunite on a hunt for a real haunting. It gave them new depth and allowed for a refreshing dynamic. Fred was no longer just the trap guy. Daphne had her own television show, Velma ran a bookstore, Shaggy and Scooby worked at an airport. For once, it felt like they had lives outside the van. Set after the Mystery Inc. crew had disbanded, tired of villains and rubber masks and mysteries with all too human explanations, the story of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island marked a bold new direction for the franchise. The gang, now older and pursuing their own paths, found themselves reluctantly reunited when Daphne's new TV show sent them searching for real paranormal activity. That search took them deep into the Louisiana bayou to a fog-drenched place called Moonscar Island. There, they stumbled into a gothic nightmare involving vengeful pirate ghosts, a cursed plantation, and immortal werecats who needed to drain life energy to maintain their cursed existence. The atmosphere was moody, mysterious, and drenched in Southern Gothic energy. Gone were the winking jokes and lighthearted frights. This time, the monsters were real, and the stakes were deadly. From its opening scene, the film made it clear that it wasn't playing by the usual Saturday morning rules. The tone was more intense, the suspense more drawn out. Zombie hands burst from the ground. Ghostly apparitions spoke in ancient tongues. The usual Scooby-Doo formula of gather clues, unmask the crook was upended. Here, the gang didn't just face a mystery, they faced fear itself. The soundtrack punched up the tension even more, with original tracks like It's Terror Time Again by Sky Cycle becoming instant cult favorites. Third Eye Blind's contribution added to the film's distinct 90s edge, and the music throughout gave chase scenes a kind of cinematic propulsion that was rare for a children's animated film. This wasn't just nostalgia, this was a reinvention. Visually, the film made just as bold a statement. Hanna-Barbera handed the animation to Japan's Mook Animation, whose dynamic and fluid style brought an eerie, painterly quality to the bayou setting. Shadows lingered longer, light flickered more ominously. Moonscar Island felt like a place that existed beyond the bounds of the screen, dense with history and haunted by its past. The character designs also received modern tweaks. Fred dropped his trademark ascot in favor of a more laid-back vest look. Daphne looked more fashion-forward, suited to her new role as a TV host. Velma kept her iconic color scheme, but was given a sleeker, less retro outfit. Shaggy briefly wore a red shirt, a nod to earlier changes in his design, before the team realized his green and brown combo was simply untouchable. Even Scooby felt more expressive, thanks to smoother animation and sharper visual timing. The voice cast, too, reflected a transitional moment. While many of the original actors were replaced, some due to creative disagreements, others due to the passage of time, Frank Welker remained as Fred, anchoring the cast with a sense of continuity. Billy West, known for his work on Futurama and Ren and Stimpy, stepped into the role of Shaggy, delivering a slightly different but still recognizable take. Mary Kay Bergman's Daphne had more maturity, while B.J. Ward brought a no-nonsense tone to Velma. Most poignantly, the film was dedicated to Don Messick, the original voice of Scooby-Doo, who had passed away in 1997. Scott Innes filled in as Scooby, and though no one could fully replace Messick, the transition was handled with care and respect. Far from a quiet niche release, Zombie Island launched with a marketing blitz that would make a theatrical blockbuster jealous. Warner Brothers backed the movie with a $50 million promotional campaign, an almost unheard of sum for a direct-to-video animated feature. Scooby-Doo suddenly appeared everywhere, on soup cans, kids' meals, commercials, and even on a NASCAR vehicle racing under the Cartoon Network banner. The channel, now a vital home for reruns of classic Hanna-Barbera content, devoted the entire month of October to Scooby-themed programming, culminating in a Halloween night premiere that became an event in itself. VHS copies hit stores a month earlier at the premium price of $19.95. And they flew off shelves. Kids couldn't get enough. Parents, especially those raised on the lighter, goofier 1969 original, were floored by how atmospheric and genuinely spooky the film turned out to be. And the critics took notice. Reviewers praised the film's ambition, its surprisingly layered plot, and its embrace of real supernatural horror. Entertainment writers called it a nostalgic thrill ride and a loving reinvention. Publications like Entertainment Weekly and the Chicago Tribune highlighted its humor, pacing, and willingness to go darker without losing its sense of fun. It became a touchstone for a generation of fans who grew up watching it on repeat, first on VHS, later on Cartoon Network, and eventually on DVD and Blu-ray. Its music was quoted, its villains remembered. The twist, that the zombies weren't the villains, but the warning, became one of the most beloved and unexpected narrative turns in children's animation of the era. Most importantly, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island reignited the franchise. What had been slowly fading into rerun purgatory suddenly had new life. The success of the film led directly to a string of darker, more ambitious direct-to-video follow-ups like The Witch's Ghost, Alien Invaders, and Cyber Chase. It laid the groundwork for future reinterpretations of the gang, including the 2002 live-action film and the fan-favorite Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated series. More than just a commercial hit, Zombie Island broke the mold that had defined Scooby-Doo since the late 1960s. For years, the formula had remained largely the same. spooky setup, chase scene, unmasking, and a logical explanation. But this film challenged that structure. It suggested that the series could grow up without losing its identity, that it could embrace real danger, real monsters, and still feel like Scooby-Doo. It offered viewers a richer narrative, more cinematic animation, and a moodier tone that took the gang out of their familiar comfort zone and placed them in genuine peril. Yet through it all, the heart of the series, its humor, its camaraderie, its enduring charm, remained fully intact. Even decades later, Zombie Island continues to be widely regarded as the best Scooby-Doo movie ever made. Its reputation hasn't dimmed with time. If anything, it's grown stronger. Fans speak of it with reverence, recalling not just the memorable plot twists and atmospheric setting, but the way it made them feel. It was scary in a way that felt just right. Not too much to traumatize young viewers, but enough to make hearts race and imaginations run wild. It was one of the first times the gang faced real monsters and real stakes. And for many young fans, it was the moment they realized Scooby-Doo could be more than a comforting cartoon rerun. It could be thrilling, intense, mysterious, and still be fun. Today, the film lives on through Halloween TV marathons, nostalgic rewatch sessions, and weathered VHS tapes tucked away in childhood closets. It is lovingly quoted, passionately defended, and frequently held up as the gold standard by which all subsequent Scooby-Doo productions are measured. For many, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island wasn't just another installment in a long-running franchise. It was the movie, the one that proved the series had life well beyond rubber-masked villains and canned laugh tracks. It demonstrated that the gang could evolve, that the stories could go deeper, and that audiences, both new and old, would come along for the ride. It offered something fresh while honoring the past, and in doing so, it helped redefine what Scooby-Doo could be in a changing entertainment landscape. And remarkably, it accomplished all of this with a haunted island draped in Spanish moss, the lingering ghost of a centuries-old pirate, a pair of vengeful immortal catwomen, and a bayou crawling with cursed zombies who turned out to be the victims, not the villains. In one unforgettable adventure, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island reminded the world that the Mystery Inc. gang still had plenty of stories to tell, and that when done right, Scooby-Doo could be more than just spooky fun. It could be something truly special.
Come along, let's sing, where the joy will bring. Tune into the beat, feel the magic, it's true. Channel 1 9 on X, we're here just for you.